I didn't know if we'd have anybody here tonight or not when we came, because it didn't remind anybody, and I knew everybody was. It's a busy time of year. With that said, we're in the book of beginnings, lesson 19, the blessing. We're getting close to the end of the book of Genesis. I don't plan, we're going to be in the 27th chapter tonight. There's a couple of nights that I've done taken that night for a chapter. That's what I'm going to do tonight. But I don't plan that to be through all the way to the end of Genesis. We'll see how it goes. But there's a lot in the one last time in this one that has to do with the covenant and who we are and the book of beginnings. So we're going to have the blessing is what we're going to talk about tonight. And with that, we're going to Genesis 27th chapter, verse 1. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could not see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, "My son." 25th chapter of Genesis, the 5th verse. It says, Abraham gave everything he owned to Isaac. Slip down to the 11th verse. It says, after Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac. So we're going to be talking about what he did for Isaac and what was passed down to Isaac, and what Isaac is supposed to pass down to Jacob, but his older son is Esau, and Esau is his favorite. So and I put down here at the bottom, the birthright designates the head of the family. The blessing passes on the power to fulfill this obligation. And I've got a quote here that I think will help us. Chapter 27 described the third conflict between the brothers Jacob and Esau. The first was in the womb and the birth, Genesis 25, 21 through 28. The second was over the birthright, Genesis 25, 29 through 34. The third is in this chapter, it is over the birthright blessing from their father Isaac. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So to get us in line with where I want us to be tonight, Rebekah was told that the elder would serve the younger. Did she tell Isaac? And Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. Did he tell Isaac? So here we have Isaac, who's gotten to the point where he can't see, and he's called for his oldest son to come in and go hunt some game, make him a meal and feed him, and then he's going to bless him, give him the blessing. That would have been a perfect opportunity for Esau to say, something I forgot to tell you. So with that, in the Hebrew, there's two words here we're going to be talking about in just a second. If you look at the bottom, it says in chapter 27, Esau is referred to as the oldest son, not the firstborn. And there's a difference. And if you look at the two words, the first one means great or older is what it means. The next one means firstborn. And he referred to Isaac not as the firstborn. So we don't know if that's the way Isaac referred to him or if that's the way when the writer of Genesis, the way he put it in there, because the firstborn, the one that was due, the blessing of the firstborn was not Esau, it was Jacob. And that's why did the Torah refer to Esau as oldest son, but not the firstborn? And the reason being is because what they knew that I don't know that Isaac knew was that he had sold his birthright to Jacob. And not only that, we know that he was not responsible enough with the birthright to be able to carry it on from generation to generation to generation like it had to happen. So, the question that came to mind, the Torah never refers to Esau as being an evil person. The book of Hebrews, when referring back about Esau, referred to him as if the best we could do with is a male prostitute, in that he sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. And the birthright was the most important thing at that time, more so than wealth or anything else. The birthright was of most importance. And he didn't understand the covenant good enough, Abrahamic covenant enough, to pass it on from one generation to the next if he was willing to sell his birthright for a bowl of soup. It's not thinking much of your birthright. 27:2. He said, "Look, I am old and do not know the day of my death. Take your hunting gear, your quiver and bow, and go out in the field to hunt some game for me. Then make me a delicious meal that I love and bring it to me to eat, so that I can bless you before I die." Our understanding in our English American minds and our way of thought in modern times, we don't think of blessings and things the way they did. In the Hebrew thinking of this particular time and right on through for many years, if you said something, it's as if what you said became a separate entity from you. You couldn't, and really that's true in many respects, because a lot of times we say something and then we think, I wish I could take that back. But you can't. There's nothing you can do about it. But when they looked at it, they looked at it much differently. When you're looking at what they said, it had more power than what they looked at it as having more power than what we do. Once something is done and once it's said, that's it. You're done with it. That I can bless you before I die literally means so that my soul may bless you. The blessing was from the very depths of Isaac's soul. This is from a Hebrew commentary. And I put, what should Esau have said at this point? When Isaac called him in, he said, I want you to go hunt some game. I want you to make me a good meal. And after you make me this good meal, I want you to come back and serve it to me, and I'm going to give you the blessing. He knew what blessing he was talking about. He was giving him the blessing of the firstborn, the blessing of the birthright. He knew that's the blessing, and we'll talk about it a little bit in a minute probably. There, you can have one that gets the birthright and the other that gets the blessing, but it's very unusual, and there's reasons why. Blessing, birthright versus blessing. He said, and what the scripture I have there is Genesis 27:36. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing. This is after the fact. Of course, we're going to go through the story here in just a second. We're going to go through some of it. But he said this is Esau. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing. Did he take Esau's birthright? What happened? Esau sold it to him. So he was the rightful owner of the birthright. It's not a matter of him taking anything. Technically, Isaac could have given the greater blessing to Esau even if Esau was no longer in possession of the birthright. But would he if he had known of Esau selling his birthright? If Esau had told Isaac that, Isaac probably wouldn't even brought him in there to give him that blessing, because the blessing needs to go along with the birthright in order to protect it, is the way I see the thing. Verse 5. Now Rebekah was listening to what Isaac said to his son Esau. So while Esau went to the field to hunt some game to bring in, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, listen, I heard your father talking to your brother Esau. Slip down to the 8th verse. It says, now obey every order I give you, my son. And a lot of people talk about how Jacob was such a deceiver and how he deceived his brother in buying the birthright. He deceived his brother in this case. Who is it doing the deceiving? It's his mother. It's Rebekah. She said, now obey every order I give you, my son. And there's a reason for it. And a couple notes here. I know people, or I have known people, that are praying for God to bless them. They need a financial blessing. So they pray for God to bless them. And they sit at the house. And they go out to the mailbox when the mail comes. And they check to see if there's a check in there. And they don't have one. And they come back and they pray for God to bless them. What do we have to do sometimes to get blessings that we pray for? We have to do something ourselves. If we don't do anything, it's kind of hard for God to bless somebody who's sitting still and doing nothing. It's like before we had power steering on vehicles. It was hard to steer a car until you got it moving. Once you got it moving, then you can steer it. Now with power steering, you can steer them. It doesn't matter. But back in the day, it took a lot more to do it. So what if Rebekah had not intervened here? What if she had allowed it to take place like it was? First place, we're going back to the same question. Did she ever tell Isaac that God had told her that the elder would serve the younger? We have no indication. We have nothing that says she did or she didn't. Isaac is acting like she never did. So his actions seem to speak for that. So was Rebekah really a deceiver if she was working to get, now I'm not one of the ends justify the means type person, but was she really, the person that most at fault here were two people, and it was Isaac and Esau, as far as I'm concerned, not Rebekah and Jacob. Although they get blamed for it many times, it wasn't their fault. What would have happened if Rebekah had not intervened? Think about that for a minute. You have Esau who will sell his birthright for a bowl of soup and then not tell his dad. And then he come in to get the blessing, and he go kill some game and cook it to come in and receive the blessing that he knows really if he'd have told his dad that, look, I sold my birthright to Jacob, then he said, well, send Jacob in here then. Is probably what he would have said. So if he hadn't intervened, here's the question that it's irrelevant, but it's a question we can ask. Would the birthright have served the purpose that it had to serve in order to get Jesus into this world if it had been left up to Esau? And probably not. God had told Rebekah that Jacob would be the rightful owner of the birthright and the blessing. He had told her, so that your older son is going to serve the younger. She didn't know how this was going to work out. She didn't know. God didn't. There's nowhere in the Bible it says He gave her all the details. She had no idea, as far as I can tell, and why she didn't tell Isaac, I don't know. Or if she did tell Isaac, Isaac didn't care. But how to get this to work out, she was in a jam. She was in a position where Isaac had said to Esau, you come in, you go hunt, you make me a meal, and I'm going to give you the blessing of the firstborn. She knew that he wasn't supposed to get it. And there's times when God expects us to intervene. Instead of just sitting back and doing nothing, sometimes we have to do something. You can pray all you want to be filled with the wisdom of God. But if you never read the Bible, if you never pray, if you never hang around godly people, if you never listen to messages or listen to teaching, what's the odds you're going to get any wisdom from God? It's going to be slim to none. 9th verse. Go to the flock. This is Rebekah talking to Jacob. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats. We take a little detour here for just a minute. We read these things, and we read it all in one chapter, and it doesn't take many minutes for us to read the whole thing. Esau was sent out to kill some game. How long do you think it took him to kill the game? After he killed the game, then he had to come back and skin it and dress it and do all that. And then he had to cook it up, and he had to bring it into his father. Well, even here, she sent Jacob out. He said, bring me 2 choice young goats. He had to go out and get 2 goats. They had to kill these 2 goats. They had to dress these 2 goats, and they had to make the food and cook it for them. So this is, although we can read it in a short span of time, this takes some time. So they really had time to think about what was going on here. What went through their mind, I have no idea. I will make them to a delicious meal for your father, the kind he loves. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. Jacob answered Rebekah his mother, look, my brother Esau is a hairy man, but I'm a man with smooth skin. Suppose my father touches me, then I will be revealed to him as a deceiver, and bring a curse rather than a blessing on myself. I want you to look the way that's worded. He says, then I will reveal to him. be revealed to him as a deceiver. He didn't say he was a deceiver. He said, as I'll be revealed to him as a deceiver and bring a curse rather than a blessing on myself. So what did they do? What did his mama do to make sure that that didn't happen? She took some of the hair and stuff and put on his neck and put on his arms and got some of Esau's clothes so he would smell like Esau when he went into his father. And she was working pretty hard here. His mother said to him, your curse be on me, my son. Just obey me and go get them for me. She said, this is not on you. This is on me. She was making way so that God's will could be done and the right thing would happen. But she was having to do it in a way that it's a little bit deceptive. Yes. Yeah, but either he didn't know or he didn't care. It could have been that Isaac knew about it all the time and that Rebekah had told him that, and he said, that's ridiculous. The oldest is the one I'm going to bless. He's the one that has the birthright. Jacob is going to wind up serving it. That could have been what Isaac said. We don't know. Doesn't tell us. Either way, Isaac was going against the will of God, regardless of how you look at it. It was God that worked. It was Rebekah that worked to fulfill God's will in this particular thing. Even in deception, she was working to continue the promise. Verse 26. Then his father Isaac said to him, please come closer and kiss me, my son. So he came closer and kissed him. Then Isaac smelled his clothes. He blessed him and said. So once he smelled his clothes, once he had him close to him, because you remember when he came in, I left this out. I didn't put all the scripture in there. But when he came in, he said something. He said, you say you're Isaac, you say you're Esau, but you sound like Jacob. And so, did you think Jacob could have been a little bit tense when he went in there? The smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give to you, now this is the blessing, may God give to you from the dew of the sky and from the richness of the land an abundance of grain and new wine. May people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brothers. May your mother's sons bow down to you. Those who curse you will be cursed, and those who bless you will be blessed. This is the blessing that Isaac gave to Jacob. And at one line, those who curse you will be cursed, those who bless you. It's really a restatement of what God had told Abraham. He told him, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Those who persecute, through the years you can see, we'll just say in the 20th century, the Germans horribly persecuted the Jews. What happened to the Germans? The Romans persecuted the Jews. What happened to the Romans? Although it's just a small group of people, when you're persecuting God's people, sooner or later it's going to come back to get you. That's good for us. Verse 30. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had left the presence of his father Isaac, his brother Esau arrived from the hunt. He had also made some delicious food and brought it to his father. Then he said to his father, let my father get up and eat some of his son's game, so that you may bless me. But his father Isaac said to him, who are you? And he realized what he had done. If you read further, it says, he answered him, Esau answered him, I am Esau, your firstborn son. In other words, if you read it in the Hebrew, what he's saying is, I am Esau, the one who deserves the birthright and who deserves the blessing. Because he said, I am your firstborn. He added that in himself. All he had to say, he said, who are you? What was he asked? Isaac said, who are you? He could have said, I'm Esau. But he didn't. He was making a claim. 36th verse. So he said, isn't he rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me twice. He's cheated me twice. He took my birthright, and look, now he has taken my blessing. If you look at the name Jacob, It means heel catcher. You remember when they were born, he was holding on to his brother's heel. Or it also means supplanter. Supplanter is one who takes the place of another. So the question is, did Jacob cheat Esau out of anything? My answer is no. Some people, even good, godly Christian people, will say yes, but he didn't. Was there deception involved? Yes. What was God's will? God's will was for Jacob. Why? Because Jacob is the one who could be trusted with the birthright, and he needed the blessing along with the birthright in order to carry on the birthright to the next generation. So God knows who to pick and who not to pick. Verse 41, Esau, now listen to how Esau responded. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. And Esau determined in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. I'm going to kill him. Verse 42. When the words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she summoned her younger son Jacob and said to him, listen, your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. Wouldn't that be a shock if you were told that by your mother? So now, my son, listen to me. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran and stay with him for a few days. What did she say? Stay with him a few days. How long did he wind up staying there? What, around 20 years? Stay with him for a few days until your brother's anger subsides. And I said about when we're looking at things and we see things like killing the goats and going out and hunting and all this. We see it as a short time because it was short in the scripture, but it really took longer than that. He was down here. Haran is up here. That's how far he had to travel to get to the land where she had sent him, was that far. This map shows you a little bit better, and it says his journey was approximately 550 miles. So what was the fastest transportation he would have had? A camel? He was probably walking most of the way. That's 550 miles he went to get up to Haran. What's at Haran? That's where her brother was, but that's where Abram, and Sarah, and Terah, and Haran, and all of them. This is Abraham's brother, is who this is named after. But they came here and settled, and Terah died here, and that's where God spoke to Abram and told him to go to the land that he had promised, and it was down here. But he traveled all the way from here up to here, 550 miles. 45. Till your brother's rage turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him. Yeah. Then I will send for you and bring you back from there. Why should I lose you both in one day? And this is what she told Isaac. So Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm sick of my life because of these Hittite women. If Jacob marries a Hittite woman like one of them, what good is my life? Now, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about here? Esau had married, I think he had 2 wives, and they were both Hittite women. And she's saying, I can't take any more of these Hittite women. And so to me, this is part of the excuse for him to send Jacob back to Haran, is so that he could marry into their lineage, into their bloodline up in Haran, rather than to these Hittite women, because he wasn't very tickled with Hittite women. And I think it was more of an excuse than anything else. Question and answers. You have questions, we have answers. Hopefully.